Modern pop culture paints elves as noble, beautiful, and wise immortals. But if you travel back to the Middle Ages, this word only brought the deepest terror. True ancient elves were human-sized, possessing corpse-like pale skin and cold eyes. They were not guardians of the forest, but nature's most cruel predators. In ancient Anglo-Saxon texts, they were seen as invisible demons bringing disease and sudden death. To them, humans were merely fragile prey and sustenance. These invisible hunters hid in the shadowy woods, drawing deadly bowstrings made of bone and dead wood. This was the terrifying elf shot of the Middle Ages. The border between elves and humans was never a peaceful fairy tale forest. It was a one-way hunting line paved with disease and death. When a farmer suddenly collapsed and twitched in agony in the field, it was no simple illness. It was an invisible arrow of a curse piercing their body with precision. This arrow did not kill instantly, but lingered in the body like a supernatural parasite. Elves used it to paralyze their prey, slowly draining their pure life essence from afar. The victim would linger in extreme weakness and agony, their soul stripped away bit by bit. Ultimately, they were reduced to a mindless, hollow shell. Before bacteriology was born, ancient doctors viewed elves as the deadliest pathogens. They filled their heavy medical tomes with desperate prescriptions to combat them. To save the parasitized patient, the doctor had to concoct special herbs and perform a dangerous arrow extraction ritual. This was a brutal medical war between humans and invisible monsters. When medicine completely collapsed before the invisible curse, fear seeped into every home. For the elves' hunting ground had shifted into human bedrooms. The malice of elves was not limited to shooting arrows from the forest. Their most heartbreaking atrocities often occurred in humanity's safest cradles. Legend has it that elves were deeply jealous of humanity's healthy and beautiful bloodlines. They would sneak into farmhouses dead of night to steal newborn, robust human babies. In exchange, they would leave a terrifying substitute known as a changeling in the cradle. This was an old, deformed, and malicious elven impostor. This monster had an insatiable appetite, frantically feeding on the human mother's milk while remaining skeletal. The entire family's vitality would be slowly drained by this creature, stripping away the myth. This was actually ancient people's projection of fear towards sudden infant death syndrome or congenital diseases. When they couldn't explain why a child suddenly became weak or deformed, elves became the perfect scapegoat to force the elves to return the real child. Parents of that era would perform incredibly cruel tests. They would even place a suspected changeling baby dangerously close to a blazing hearth. Countless families shattered amidst fire and tragedy, the shadow of the changeling looming over Europe for centuries, until a more powerful ruling force decided to rewrite this history. This madness born of the unknown left an indelible, bloody mark for elves in European history. But why, in modern times, did these terrifying monsters become little fairies in fairy tales? The answer lies in religious intervention and deliberate literary rewriting. To erase people's reverence for ancient pagan gods, the church began to diminish the status of elves in folklore. By the Victorian era, writers further stripped them of their lethal power and human-sized stature. The once cruel, invisible killers were forcibly shrunk into comical playthings with butterfly wings. But no matter how pop culture sugarcoats it, that primal fear etched into human DNA still remains. True elves never disappeared. They simply hid back into the depths of the forest. The next time you feel a sudden sharp pain in a quiet woodland, do not dismiss it as an illusion. Perhaps a bow made of bone has already locked onto you. The library's dark bestiary has been updated, but the truth in the night continues.